Today we have Eddie Mitchell with us, and he has quite the story to tell about a diabetes forum that is doing something that's not real smart, because these days you and I know that diabetes, the best way to control diabetes is with a low-carb diet. Well, we have a gentleman here today by the name of Eddie Mitchell, and he's going to tell you about something that's happening on the largest diabetes forum in the UK, diabetes.co.uk, that's not real flattering to low-carbers. Eddie, welcome.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, tell us a little bit about what's happening over there, because it seems like in recent days, for various reasons, low-carb has suddenly become taboo, as you told me, and almost all of the active low-carbers, including one Dr. Jay Wortman, who's a very famous Canadian low-carb physician, have been banned from this very prominent diabetes forum. Tell us about what's going on.
Well, currently, I think the problem is that the people that moderate it, although they profess to be low carb, they are also very low fat, also very low calorie.
Yeah.
Dr. J had looked at the forum and realized that the diet they were pushing, or the method of controlling their people's weights and their BG numbers, was totally unsustainable.
Right.
He placed some good posts on there, and immediately the senior, the moderator that basically runs it, took offense. They tried to defend it, and at one point the other moderator there, who's also a state registered nurse, came back, and it got really ridiculous when they said a lot of people can get by on 1,000 calories or thereabouts a day. But clearly Jay knew that was totally impossible. I know it's impossible. You know it's impossible. You might survive like that for a few weeks, a few months, but starvation will win in the end, and you're going to starve on 1,000 calories a day. Right. That's for sure. Now,
it hasn't always been this poor of advice, because you were telling me before the show that you actually have been helped by this very forum by a gentleman that had type 1 diabetes who was a part of the forum. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, 3 years ago, the place was fantastic for low carb. A new guy joined called Fergus Craig, long-time low carber, introduced us to people like Richard Bernstein, Gary Taubes. We took it up, and within a week our BG numbers were going to non-diabetic. Within months I'd lost 50 pounds. It was a great place to be.
Wow.
But it went wrong. It went wrong in so much as a British registered dietitian started putting a lot of fear into people's minds. Obviously, people take notice of a registered dietitian, and she was warning us, low carbers can go down with scurvy, they can get osteoporosis, bowel problems, constipation, cognitive, day after day. Well, we took her on to start with, and I think the people that really knew what they were talking about and had tried low carbing and realized it was their salvation, it was certainly my salvation, realized she was a bit of a buffoon. But the problem was that, of course, newbies coming on who knew nothing about low carbing, nothing about diabetes control, clearly that was giving them second thoughts.
Well, and somebody like Dr. Jay Wortman, who is very steeped in the science, very much into, I mean, he's researched low-carb diets, he's used low-carb diets with his patients and even with himself as a type 2 diabetic, and he was trying to correct a lot of these things, and they would not even let him, according to Dr. J, they would not let him even mention his credentials in his username, which he wanted to use, I believe, like Dr. J Wortman or something like that, and they wouldn't even let him mention that he had credentials.
That doesn't surprise me at all. It doesn't surprise me at all. When you've got forum moderators, and there are only two, pushing a ludicrous diet, And Jay's by no means the first person. For a long time, anyone on that forum that speaks out against, say, the style of moderation or queries ludicrous postings they're seeing on there, banning's the order of the day. Deletion of people's posts and thread locking is a daily occurrence. I've been banned myself. So many people that push the low carb cause have been banned. I think it really falls into two camps. One, the individual forum moderators' attitudes, views or beliefs, and then you've also got to look at the commercial side of this.
Right.
The commercial side of it, although it is pushed as a free forum, it is linked to a main site that sells a lot of books, all sorts of bits and pieces, meters, whatever, to Diabetics. And the 30,000 members are on a mail shot list, and even when you're banned, they still mail shot you with thinly disguised advertising.
Wow.
Now, where it gets, I think, interesting is that the people that own the main site also own a site called diet.co.uk.
Okay.
Obviously aimed at dieters. And on that site, which is the sister site to diabetes.co.uk, they're clearly not into low carbing, and I'll tell you what they say about the Atkins diet. Now, at first when I read it, I thought, this is great. Pros: eat as much fat and protein as you wish, increase the protein, decrease food cravings, feel fuller for longer, weight loss, easy to follow. I thought, yeah, it's great. But the cons, they tell us: limited carb intake may lead to dehydration and fatigue, lack of important nutrients, and here's the real killer: not suitable for anyone with diabetes. It's the perfect diet.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, it's ludicrous. So is there perhaps a conflict of interest between two websites where, if low carbing is seen, and it was seen to be successful, at one time we were running a success thread for low carb and it was getting longer by the day, and a couple of it's got a few anti-low carbers there, you've got that everywhere, thought, let's have a success thread of our own. Well, it was a very short list. But again, the moderation that's there now, who took over, and this is what I find totally ironic. I mean, this you're going to find unbelievable. The main moderator, who's brought about, in my opinion, all this trouble, stated on the Diabetic Observer online magazine a couple of years ago, if it wasn't for the help I found on the forum, etc., etc., and thanks to Fergus and others, and Eddie, i.e. me, and Trinkwasher, I took it all on board. They helped me one way or another, all unpaid and unbiased. The NHS healthy diet for me was totally wrong. It may be well okay for others, but I cannot understand why alternative diets are not thought worth a mention. Of course, the NHS standard diet, very much in line with your ADA, is based your diet on starchy carbs.
Right. And now where have we gotten?
Well, we've got to a place that a once great forum is now, what can we say, a paragon of misinformation.
Yeah.
It's a great shame when you think it's the largest forum of its type in the UK. Newbies are coming on a daily basis, and where they were welcomed genuinely and given individual advice, now it's a cut and paste job. And the most worrying thing of that is the cut and paste job is recommended blood glucose levels that are above. They do fit in with our NICE guidelines, which is a government body that recommends guidelines for various people. Although it fits in with that, the guidelines recommended and pushed to newbies over there are way above the level where organ damage occurs.
Yeah.
They're pushing, I think, I haven't got it in front of me, but I believe they say for type 1s, no more than 9 after 2 hours after a meal, but if you can do better, okay. But that really could imply to a newbie Well, if I can do better, if 8, that's better than 9, that'll do. But of course, blood glucose levels are 8 or 9 are double that of a non-diabetic.
Do you know what the translation is into the American blood sugar?
It's times 18, so I think
times 18. Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
So, let's have it. That's it. Again, whatever way you look at it, you're looking at numbers that are twice a non-diabetic would have,
right?
And that's dangerous. I mean, I'll give you an example. It may be the same in the States. Just bear with me a second. The national health data, which is published by the government, we're not talking about, poor information. This is absolute rock solid. The percentage in 2008-2009 of type 1 diabetics with an HbA1c greater than 7.5 is 71%.
Wow.
Now, 7.5 is not a safe number.
No.
Someone like Dr. Bernstein would shudder at that kind of number. But even that very poor and dangerous number, only 1 in 4 get to that level.
Wow.
And this is what we fight against. This is what we push. There's so much misinformation.
So, Eddie, this is a bleak situation, and you certainly have articulated it well, that people who are visiting this diabetes.co.uk website need to be aware they're not going to give you good advice if you have diabetes. So what would you like to see happen? What, in a perfect world, would Eddie Mitchell like to see result from this?
Well, clearly, moderators that are unbiased, that know what they're doing, and give sound information.
So if that doesn't happen, are you open to starting a new one that would be low-carb friendly, or do you think that's just not feasible starting from the ground up?
It's feasible, but it's not a direction I want to go in. I mean, we run our blog, we run our website. There's 6 of us work with diabetics behind the scenes. And not only diabetics, people are having great weight problems. I mean, as you know, so many people struggle for perhaps all their life to lose weight. Some get successful, the majority pile it back on. It's all about insulin control, whether you're a diabetic or a non-diabetic. And whenever you look at Weight Watchers things, I've picked up all sorts of books. None of them ever talk about controlling insulin. And that is the key to losing weight. If you can keep that plasma insulin level low, and you keep it low, of course, by eating food that does not raise it. If you've not got a lot of insulin washing around your system, then you can use stored body fat as a fuel. When you're a lot of insulin, you're only putting it on. It's the growth hormone. No insulin, no weight gain. It's impossible.
His name is Eddie Mitchell. Eddie, tell us your website.
low-carb-diabetic.co.uk.
Excellent. So go check it out if you want quality information about how to control your diabetes, and certainly you're doing a great job there in the UK, passing on a good legacy to those 6 kids and 3 grandchildren that you have, and certainly keep up the great work, and we'll certainly keep following this story and trying to warn people that stay away from diabetes.co.uk until they get their act together, because it certainly sounds like they do have an agenda in mind. But thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for your time.